everybody, it is Valerie Duvall, and I'm really excited today to have Frank Apuzzo with me. Hi, Frank.
Hello, Valerie.
How you doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Good, good. You know, I forget, where do you live?
I am in sunny Orlando, Florida.
Oh, so you're not feeling the ice chill the rest of the country is feeling.
Nope. No, there was a Weather Channel image that was going around the internet that had the whole state in really cold temperatures, and then there was Florida in the 70s and 80s, like the only state that wasn't participating in winter, which was pretty funny. I got a lot of ribbing from my friends in Chicago, which is where I'm from originally.
I'm sure you did, because it's cold. I mean, it's in the 20s here. I'm in New York.
Oh, wow.
Right outside New York City. It doesn't usually get this cold this early, so we're thinking it's going to be a bad winter. But
yeah.
Anyway, let's move on. The reason we have Frank here today is because he has been using Craigslist now for a while and doing very, very well. So Brian thought it would be great if we got an interview with him. And personally, I just love hearing what people are doing and how they're doing in their business. So we're going to talk a little bit about Frank's business from a general standpoint, as well as from what he's doing with Craigslist, just to, you know, give you guys a heads up and see what other people are doing. How does that sound, Frank?
That sounds good.
Great, great. First of all, why don't you just tell people a little bit about yourself and how you got into offline marketing?
Absolutely. Well, my background was in marketing primarily, but mostly for vacation ownership marketing. I worked in the timeshare business while I was going to college, and interestingly enough, I was going to a school called University of Central Florida, and around the time about my junior year, couldn't get the courses that I wanted to take to kind of complete my study, which was in marketing. And so I took some time off and started working part-time for a buddy of mine who was an electrician. So I was an electrician's helper, and I was getting paid a whole $4 an hour to do that kind of work. So I guess the outsourcers get paid that now. But I actually worked for $4 an hour when I was, I think I was probably like 20 years old. And I fell through the ceiling of a burnt-out school building that we were rewiring, and I said, well, this electrical work's not for me. I'm going to try to find something else to do. And so I was just kind of looking through the newspaper, and I came across an advertisement under miscellaneous employment because I really wasn't skilled to do much of anything else at that point. So
other than miscellaneous?
Other than miscellaneous, yeah, exactly. And the ad really struck me, and this speaks volumes for good copywriting and advertisements, because the ad, I remember it to this day, it said, goodbye, 40 hours, full-time pay, part-time work. And so that absolutely struck a chord with me. And I'm like, you know, I'm in. I'm going to call these people. So I called them up and went in for the interview. Beautiful office in Lake Buena Vista, which is where the vacation resort mecca of the world is located, just outside of Disney. And I went through the interview process, and basically they offered me a job, and it was a commission job. Basically paid a week of training and then 4 weeks at $200 a week until you went into straight commission. So for somebody that was making $160 a week to all of a sudden get a $40 or $40 a week raise.
That's a big raise.
That was a big raise. And of course it was only 5 weeks, and when you're 20 years old, 5 weeks is an eternity. So I was like, man, I'm in hog heaven here. So
you got a 25% raise.
Exactly. It was a really nice thing. So, but I said to the lady, I said, gee, I'd like to take the job, but, is there any issues regarding school schedule? Because I really do want to go back to school and finish my graduate, get my degree. And they said, well, you're going to have to work mornings, nights, evenings, et cetera. But said basically, we can't work around your schedule. I said, okay, well, I needed the money. Rent was coming up. So I said, I'll take the job. I can always go to school later. Well, long story short, I started working there, and I'm one of those guys that was inviting vacationers to take those dreaded timeshare tours. But, I used to be a shy person, and interestingly enough, after, having to talk to people to get them to go on these tours, you really do learn to get out of yourself. And that's a good thing for the people that are listening who think they can't sell or they're afraid to speak to people. I used to be like that. And, basically people are actually pretty nice, and when you know what you're talking about, most people will actually give you the time to listen to you. And that's what happened when I was doing this timeshare marketing for Vistana Resort. and I ended up in the 2.5 years while I was working there, generated over $2 million in business for the resort back in the
Nice.
in the day, which was really kind of cool. So fast forward, after I did that for a number of years, I ended up getting hired to work in their marketing department. The president of the company had taken notice, and so I got trained in all the different areas. They actually let me go back to college and work around my schedule because I was doing so well. So it goes to show when you're productive, people will
Yeah.
be flexible in their schedule. So that's kind of
Can I stop you 1 second just to touch on this point before I forget, because I
Yep,
think it's
absolutely.
a good one. What do you think it was? You said you were shy in the beginning. What do you think it was that got you out of your shell and got you comfortable with that? Which I agree with you. I think that's probably one of the tougher jobs is selling timeshares.
Yeah, and I wasn't on the sales side. I was just the guy that was inviting people. But, they're on vacation, they're walking by, a location at the mall or out at Wet and Wild, whatever the case might be. And, so my job was to do an invitation, but we had an actual script with an invitation. They taught you how to overcome objections, which is very similar to the business that we're in now with local marketing. So just that whole, training of what to say, and then what to say when they had an objection. And then even they taught you how to close, and our close was so basic because it was just as simple as asking them, how to spell their name. We never asked them if they wanted to go on the tour or not. We just said, how do you spell your last name? And they'd look at each other, and eventually somebody would start spelling their last name. And it was just a hoot how that little simple close worked. And I guess the way I kind of got out of the shyness was I had to. I mean, if I didn't talk to anybody, I wasn't going to get paid after the 5 weeks was over. 1 week of training, 4 weeks in the field. So I knew I had to talk to people and invite them. And I knew if I talked to enough people, hopefully somebody would say yes. And interestingly enough, because we had a really nice presentation back in that day, it was just a little pitch book presentation with beautiful pictures of the resort and things. And they always had an incentive, for people to go. But I found that, most people were, like I said, pretty nice and were courteous enough to listen. And, I just would invite them and people would go. And before you know it, I had weeks where I was making $1,000 a week while I was, working part-time, and then was able to get back to college. And, all of a sudden you start to get pretty confident in yourself when what you're saying is working. So you just kind of repeat the process. And, and that was really, honestly, the beginning of how I really got out of my shell as far as being able to approach people or talk to people or even try to sell, solutions to people.
Wait, and as far as selling solutions, what solutions do you sell at this point?
Well, right now with the internet business that I'm in now, primarily, I'm focusing on local markets and local clients, like a lot of people either who are listening or are thinking about getting into this kind of business. So similar to what Brian was doing when he had his local business before he sold it, but of course now he's working on automotive. But I focus primarily, the solutions I offer local businesses are primarily, internet marketing related solutions, helping them basically get more business, using the different strategies that we can employ or the services that we can employ online, including Craigslist, advertising, including some search engine optimization services, although that's getting more and more difficult.
Yeah.
Video marketing, even paid traffic right now, which is actually really a good thing to be able to offer and sell to small businesses, which is primarily through using Google AdWords, or even some of the new stuff that Brian and Sid have been offering through the retargeting and the real-time bidding, starting to break into that as well. So, having a variety of services that you can go and talk to a business owner about is really helpful. But the Craigslist, candidly, is kind of something that's very simple to implement that almost anybody, without a ton of experience could sell to a business owner, because what that does primarily is it helps their phone ring. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what they all want. They want leads that convert into profitable business.
Right.
All the services and whatnot that you could potentially provide doesn't really matter if it doesn't result in a profitable transaction on their side. So I zero in on that now, and that's took a few years to kind of get really targeted on the right kind of businesses and the right niches and the right services, so that I'm not wasting a lot of time on my time, and then I'm not wasting, obviously, client time. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Great. So let's hone in a little bit more on the Craigslist, since that's why everybody listening to this recording is here, is to find out more. And you know, we're doing this so that you guys can get the confidence that people are out there using this, and it's something that's going to be great for your toolbox. So was it through Brian that you initially heard of Craigslist, or have you been?
Yes. Yeah, actually, yeah, it was Brian. I had, I subscribed to I subscribed to a lot of, internet marketing stuff, and over the years, this whole business is about just, being a rabid learner, because everything changes so quickly. So, anybody who's listening, I'd say don't get discouraged if you don't know certain things, because, if you could spend a little bit of time online with the right people, listening to the right people.
Yeah.
And Brian and Sid are certainly two people. And Brian, I know Brian much better than I know Sid, because I've worked very closely with Brian, but I've heard Sid on the on the automotive webinars as well, and he's very knowledgeable in that niche too. But Brian was instrumental in really kind of helping me get to where I was, which I kind of plateaued a bit. And I did some coaching, consulting with. He did some coaching with me, and then he was the one that introduced me to Craigslist. Actually, told me about his brother up in Pensacola, who was using it, and said, "Hey, I gotta tell you, this is a great service for these niches, and here's how many phone calls we're getting, and you ought to look into that." And really glad that I did, because it's turned into a really key piece of what I do. It's sort of the thing I kind of lead with my local clients, because it's so simple for them to understand.
That's what I was going to ask, is if this is something that you use to lead in.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, most of my business now comes from referrals, which I'm real fortunate for that.
Right.
But with the Craigslist, what I found was that I could go out and contact somebody in a market, and there's two ways that I could do it. Is, I could go out and either, just contact them, and the way I would do that is I would identify a business, for example, that was in doing AdWords in the niches that we go after. And if I saw somebody advertising in a certain niche in a certain market, and they were up in position 1, 2, or 3 in AdWords, well, I knew that it was a competitive niche, so I knew what they were spending. And you can easily go in and kind of get an idea of what the cost per clicks are, although Google's made it more difficult by removing the keyword research tool. Let's face it, if you're a plumber in any big city, you're going to be paying because it's competitive. If you're a air conditioning contractor in any big city, you're going to be paying per click at a high dollar because it's competitive. So you almost don't even need that tool anymore, because you just know intuitively large markets, with services that homeowners need, they're going to be competitive. So those people in the top 3 positions, I found, were spending, thousands of dollars. And I mean, when I say thousands, I'm not talking 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5, but $15,000, $20,000, $25,000 a month on AdWords. So you call them up and let them know that you've got a tool that's going to get them phone calls at a lower price than what their clicks are. That usually will get their attention. And if you've already got a client or two, and you can show them a screenshot of some reporting, and I know Brian and Sid make that stuff available, there's your proof. So you don't even need to have a client necessarily to go talk to somebody. You can use the proof that Brian's got, because that's what he did for me. He said, "Hey, use the numbers that my brother's getting," and and that's what I did. I basically followed that process. I didn't have a single client when I first talked to Brian, but then I just used the results his brother was getting, and said, one of my associates or partner, I forget how I referred to Brian, is doing it up in Pensacola, and here's the report, here's the numbers, and here's the calls, and here's what it costs per click. So I basically just did the math for him and made it so simple to understand that we're delivering phone calls at a lower price than you're paying for clicks. Is there any reason why you wouldn't want to do this?
Right.
Just in a real sort of just like that. And at the same time, let them know very candidly, and not to be a jerk about it, but say, look, I just want to let you know that this is business, and you're in a competitive market, as you well know, because you're spending a lot of money, So if you choose not to do this, I'm just telling you, not as a threat, but just to be fair and upfront so you have an opportunity to jump on this, that I'm going to call each of your competitors that's doing AdWords because I need to get a client to take these leads. And I'm hoping it's you because I've checked out your website. I've done the research, which I recommend everybody do. I would never offer my services to a business that's got bad reviews or a bad reputation in the marketplace.
Right.
That's a recipe for disaster.
I also call up companies and see how they handle the phone and how they handle leads.
Yeah,
Because,
that's really important, Val.
yeah,
Absolutely, yeah, because the same thing. If you generate the calls and they don't have a proper phone, answering system or somebody who's trained, and we had that happen with some other clients, and you'd listen to the calls and you'd be like shaking your head. People answering the phone, yeah, like a guy in the field, yeah, what do you want? You feel like there's a customer that's calling you. How about, hello, this is Joe with XYZ Company. I mean,
oh,
some of the
no.
professionalism, in the home contracting businesses leaves a little to be desired. But like you said, you can call and do that. And interestingly enough, I kind of found that out actually when I would actually make these phone calls to the offices, because what I would do is I'd literally cold call and say, hey, my name's Frank Capuzzo, and I've got a service that I'm fairly certain that whoever's running your AdWords in your company is going to want to talk to me about. So I just need to find out who that person is. And it's just real soft, you don't come in as with a script like you get, when you get those cold calls. You just talk to somebody like you'd want to be talked to yourself. And most of these gatekeepers are just regular folks. I mean, they're nice people that just have a job. And if you're nice to them and you sound like you know what you're talking about, most of them are going to be fairly good about giving you the name of the person you need to contact, maybe giving you their email address, maybe even, referring you, through a phone transfer. I don't use all those, tools where you can get, hundreds and hundreds of leads, because that's just spam to me. I like
Yeah.
to, precision target the people that I want to talk to. And those are businesses that are successful, businesses that are making money, and businesses that are spending money. And then this way, none of us are wasting anybody's time.
Well,
And
are
then
there
when you,
any specific niches that you're targeting as well?
yeah,
Or any that you, maybe
yeah,
any that you
yeah,
feel work
absolutely.
best with
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Craigslist?
great question. Yeah, I'll share some of the niches that I'm working in, and I know Brian's done some of these as well. Heating and air conditioning, of course, that's what his brother's doing up in Pensacola. That's a real good niche. Plumbers are a great niche. Roofers, kitchen remodeling, home remodeling, bathroom remodeling, tile. The guys that lay tile, painting contractors, custom landscaping, irrigation, sod, brick pavers, those kinds of services. And the reason is that typically you got two things going for you. You've got a combination of those are services where people need repair, and so interestingly enough, they go to Craigslist. I never would have thought it if Brian hadn't told me. But it just appears that because so many people are on Craigslist and people are using it for buying stuff, selling stuff, doing everything, they see all the other categories, so they see services apparently, and then they go in there and they're searching for services. And so a lot of times it might start with a repair, but then that repair turns into a replacement. And so businesses like this are set up for repairs, and they're also set up for replacement. So on the low end, the job for a repair, for an AC repair might be a few $100s. For a plumber, could be fixing a clogged toilet or a leaky, pipe or something minor. But oftentimes that can also be a pretty big job and a major job that turns into a blown pipe, a whole repipe for a house, which could be $3,500 to $5,000. Painting somebody's home, the average house, I mean, that could be $2,500 to $5,000 or more. Roofs are expensive. So the key is that, if the transaction value is high, then you've got a real good formula for generating calls that you don't need a ton of calls either to make this a decent value proposition that really isn't that hard to sell.
Right. So then, would you say this is a service that is really newbie friendly?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, anybody that wants to, go out there and offer this service, there's no real technical skills involved. I mean, the process is quite simple. The call tracking is an important element. I don't know, what you guys are offering in that area necessarily, but I know Brian's got call tracking solutions that are available. Do you have to have it? No, but it does help to have call tracking because it gives you the absolute proof that it's working.
Exactly.
The
So
other
there's
thing,
always those clients who just ping you constantly, like, what are you doing for me today?
yep,
So it's great to be able to update them.
yep, absolutely. The other thing it does is that in the event you get a client that doesn't pay, since you own that tracking number and they decide not to pay you, well, then all you have to do is find somebody to take their place and change the destination number. The tracking number in the ads does not change at all. And so oftentimes when we do our ads, we won't brand the ads for any particular company necessarily unless we have a contract, and payment in advance for for the services.
Right.
And in that case, we can go ahead and brand it. But even if you brand it and then have to change it, it's simply, going in and having the advertisement changed out, the image changed out for another image. But you never have to change the tracking number because you own the number. So all you have to do is find somebody to take their place and then point that tracking number to the new client. And you always control those ads. So that's a beautiful thing. And that's happened a couple of times. But it doesn't take very long to fill those, because when somebody sees that you're delivering phone calls at a cost that's less than what it's costing them to get a single click from Google, and that click doesn't always equal a phone call. It's just a click. We're talking about actual phone calls that are trackable and recorded that the people can listen to and whatnot to validate and prove that the service is working. So yeah, it's definitely newbie friendly. There's a few little getting the call tracking set up isn't all that difficult, and candidly, every time I set up a new account, it literally on the high end maybe 30 minutes, because I'm a little more detailed as I go forward. I'll maybe do a little more research on some of the keywords, some of the services that I want to include, because what's interesting about Craigslist is that it's a search engine in and of itself, and so unlike Google, where we're trying to figure out an algorithm, Craigslist search engine is really simple. It's totally keyword related. So whatever you put in the title, whatever you put in the advertisement, it usually picks it up. So you can get a lot of bang for the buck when it comes to Craigslist advertising in terms of listing multiple services, multiple service areas, and get a lot of reach and distribution, with a single advertisement. So I like to make sure that the ads are written properly, take a little extra time to do that. But all in all, we're talking still probably 30 minutes. And then picking the tracking number and setting up the tracking account, literally 5 to 10 minutes to do that. And then boom, usually within 24 to 48 hours, the client phone starts to ring, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. It's like almost instantaneous.
Yeah.
Have you found that there's a certain size of city or area that works better for you?
Yes.
And that you can get the amount of leads that you need?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Because I've been doing this for a while and testing a lot of different markets and services and things like that, we have found that any metropolitan area with 1 million or more people in the metropolitan area seem to get the best results. We tested some of these ads in some smaller markets like in Arizona, and again, I'm in Orlando, so anybody listening, don't worry about just serving your local market. I've got clients in Dallas and Houston, Atlanta. Don't do Arizona obviously now, but and of course Orlando, Miami, Broward County, Fort Lauderdale, and just expanding. I'm actually going to probably hire a full-time sales guy in January to take this over for me, because I don't really have time to do sales. I've got other things that I'm doing in my business. But the market size that you just asked about, if the metro area's got about 1 million people or more, that seems to be the sweet spot, as far as driving calls. And then, couple that with the right niches. And again, any of these home contracting niches, I've probably left some out. Even dumpster rentals, I think, was one we tested, and that was getting phone calls. Cement contractors,
Wow.
just think of home services and high transaction, and that's pretty much the formula. It's not real complicated.
Yeah, ironically, one of my first offline clients was my husband's company, who he's a contractor, and Craigslist was one of the first things I ever did in the offline space, so things just come full circle. That was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I never would have thought it, honestly. If Brian hadn't told me about it, it never really would have been on my radar.
I remember the first time we actually got a phone call from the ad, I was like, it worked? I had no expectations. I just made up a little ad and put it up there, and I was like, hey, this is good stuff.
Definitely.
So, yeah. And I'm jumping around a little bit, but you said something that I thought might be interesting for other people to know. You're just getting ready to hire a salesperson.
Yes.
How long has it taken you to get to the point in your business where you can now afford to hire people to take some of this mundane stuff off your shoulders?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know this year was when I first started my first campaign, and that was with a local landscaping company. And so I'm thinking that was probably back around maybe June or even a little before that. So it's been about 6 months. And then I just started adding more, as I was seeing it. Because, the fact of the matter is, just like when I was telling that story about how I used to do that OPC marketing in the vacation ownership industry, when you start to get some results, you actually start to get more confident. And as you get more confident, it just makes it a lot easier to go out and present and everything. And so as this thing did start to snowball, it's probably been about a 6-month time frame, which really is.
That's awesome.
That's not that long. And
no.
So basically when you look at, I sat down with this guy and said, all right, here's the large cities, USA, and you can just go Google largest cities in the USA and make a list and then decide which ones you want to go after. Candidly, we probably can't, we're not going to go after every single one because, we've got other things that we're doing. So there's just so much business out there that no matter who's listening to this and thinking, oh, well, he's already doing plumbing, or, oh, he's already doing roofers, or, well, you know what, there's room for more.
Oh, yeah.
There's lots of room for more. And
the offline, we'll call it offline. I don't really even like that term. I like local consultant better, but
yeah,
that industry is kind of new. It's in its infancy still. And there's established business models where there's way more competition than offliners see, and there's still room. You can't have a mindset like that. Otherwise, you're just going to keep yourself from doing anything.
Yeah, and I mentioned that because, I don't really know exactly, who the audience is that's listening, but you mentioned, newbie friendly, so people that are just getting into this. Anytime you venture into something that you're uncertain about, there's going to be some fear and intrepidation about getting into it. And so, you just got to, if you follow, your advice and Brian's and Sid's, these guys are really good at what they do. And just follow the process, follow the system, and just don't let the negative thoughts get into your mind. Don't let the fear creep in of failing and this and that, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of business owners out there that need help. They don't understand some of this stuff, even as simple as this particular service is. The reason it's simple is because we know how to do it, and we have the software, or we have the connections to actually implement it. But the average business owner isn't aware of the type of technology and services that we're able to to cobble together, if you would, to create solutions. And so somebody brand new getting into this, if they can just overcome any doubt or fear or worry of getting started, that's the key. Just get started. Follow what somebody else is doing. I went through the whole Tony Robbins Life Mastery program years ago. Which is kind of how I even got into my first business after I left the timeshare business in '97. That's when I actually started a web design and internet marketing company. And it was just, getting over the fear of starting a company and doing something, I'd never done before. And so it really is about, taking action. I know Brian's partner Mario talks about that as well, taking imperfect action. And
Massive
it's
imperfect
massive.
action.
Yeah, massive. Sorry, Mario. Massive imperfect action. And it's so true, because the way these Facebook groups are set up now and all the support that Brian and Sid offer and you as well as part of this, there's people that you can go to and get help and get questions answered. And, it's one of those things, if you fall down, get back up. If it doesn't work, try it again.
Right.
This works. I mean, I've got a ton of clients, and Brian's got a ton of clients. Other people I know have lots of clients. I say a ton of clients. I mean, I don't have a ton of clients, but I've got, close to 20 clients doing this. And
I call that a ton.
well, I'm a small business. It's very small, but I know that we can probably, get it up to 100 with a dedicated salesperson, because we have a system now that we can follow. And it's the other thing about having, my clients now that I actually don't have a lot of clients, but my clients are now paying me a lot more though too. I learned that from Brian. So it's not always about having a lot of clients, but it's more about having clients that pay you very well, and you've got nice fat profit margins built in, so you don't actually have to have a ton of clients. 20 clients to me is a ton of clients, because I'm actually my business is set up as a virtual company. So if anybody's listening, it's me. I don't have, a staff. I don't have employees. I'm as virtual gets. So, if somebody wants to get into this, you can build a nice business without having employees and all that overhead that you see in the brick and mortar business. And this is a really good way, I think, to get into that.
That's why I love this business so much, because it's just accessible to anyone who's willing to spend the time to learn it and just do it. Take the
Absolutely.
action, like you said.
Definitely.
I want to ask you something a little off the wall. Well, it's not really off the wall, but it's kind of different, a different direction. I was inspired by something you said. I think it might be helpful if you would just walk through your perfect client acquisition. Let's say it's a plumber. You've placed your Craigslist ad, you've gotten a plumber, and you've placed the ad for him, and you're getting him leads.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your ideal kind of funnel for him? What other services would you put him into?
Yeah, good. That's a really good question. So after doing something like that, then what typically happens is that, and oftentimes this could happen even at the same time of the initial sale. So, if somebody has the skills to be able to, speak about, search engine optimization or local listing optimization with the Google Plus local pages and things like that, I could talk about his Google Plus page and ask, has he optimized it? And of course, I've already know that because I've looked and I've seen it hasn't even necessarily been claimed. So then, for a nominal fee of anywhere from $250 to $500, you can go in and optimize that local listing, which is going to be filling in making sure the name, the address, the phone number is correct, making sure that it's got the proper description, uploading the number of photos that Google would allow. If there's any videos, uploading videos. If they don't have a video, then you can offer a video service to have some videos inexpensively created and produced, and then get those uploaded, creating a YouTube channel as another service, as an example. So now that opens up some doors for a video marketing service. You can get them on a monthly retainer where maybe you're going to make X number of videos per month, and there's just so many different ways to get videos made, either through Fiverr or Animoto, or there's just a lot of different sources. I was just in on a webinar earlier that had a video service that I'm looking at. And I'm sure Brian and Sid have some recommendations in that area. Get a service where you're going to develop their local citations, because citations are real important for the local listings. I even think Brian's got a service for that as well. So that's another service that you can offer. People need to have, a Facebook business page, so you can get a Facebook business page created and, even sell them on a monthly service where you're making a certain number of posts for them. And a lot of this stuff can be, all of this stuff can be outsourced. So if somebody's freaking out going, how am I going to get all this done? You don't have to do it yourself. I don't do it myself. That's how you scale when you're virtual. You find the right outsource partners, and you do that. So So that's what I would do, Val, is I'd start with the Craigslist and then lead into these other services, and oftentimes even the pay-per-click and the Google AdWords, became another one that, I could literally, make a few $100s a month per client, really not doing anything more than making the sale, and then, through the relationships somebody would develop in this business, you find people that are specialists, let's say, in managing Google AdWord campaigns. I can do it myself on some of the small local ones, but even at that, I find that the time it takes, it's just better. I just outsource it, and I charge it a fee on top of what I pay to get it done. And so, when
Yeah,
you
that's
have
very smart. Some
so when
people don't want to give up that money, but they don't understand that that's how you're going to build your business.
Absolutely. If you have five, let's just make it simple. If you have 4 clients that you're even just getting a $250 a month residual on something, you're not doing anything, that's $1,000 a month. And I was saying to somebody the other day, I said, that's a nice car payment. He said, what kind of car are you driving?
That's a mortgage payment for a lot of people.
Truth is, that's probably 2 car payments. But
yeah, 3 maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. The point is, and it's so funny because, I look at that like, what does this buy? What bill does this take care of? Or what other thing can I do with this one client? And, I rewarded myself with an automobile a couple of years ago. It's been about 2 years now. And I said to myself, okay, it's a nice car I normally wouldn't buy, but it was an exceptional deal. And I needed a car. So, I had an absolute need. So I said, I can just get a regular car. I can get something really nice. And I'm like, well, I've worked really hard. I'm going to get something real nice. And I said to myself, okay, that's one client. That's one client, not a problem. And lo and behold, I got that one client and more. And, making that little car payment now, isn't that big of a deal, $450 a month,
Yeah. I find that's a good, it's funny that you mentioned that because it's one of my favorite motivational things is to think of something that I want and that has a monthly payment and figure out what business model or what I'm going to do to pay for it.
Yeah.
And then you just go out and do it, and that money is set aside just for that.
Absolutely.
It kind of gets you motivated and gives you some incentive.
That's right. And not too many people can do that on their job because they're making a fixed salary or a fixed hourly rate. And in this business, you truly can make as much as you want to make depending on how hard you want to work, the connections that you want to make. I'll tell you, I think it's a lot easier today than it was when I got into this back in '97. Starting a web design company from scratch, and so the real key here is that there's more tools, more technology, and more people are readily available that you can work with, partner with, get help with, and it goes back to what I said. If you can get over your shyness, if you have that, if you can get over your insecurities, if you have that, if you can get over your fear of, asking for help, if that's your problem, then, the one thing I have found is that, most of the people in this space, the true professionals, are very, very willing to help people. Obviously some people do it for coaching dollars. That's well and good. But there's other people, too, that will assist with a question or an answer here and there. And Brian's one of those guys, in my opinion.
That's why we added the Facebook group to the front end product here, was so that people would have a group they could go to and have a sounding board and get access to.
Yeah, and that's huge because I'm part of a couple other ones that Brian and Sid have set up, and they're great. I've actually made a bunch of contacts with different guys. Matter of fact, somebody's working on some videos now that I mention it that I came across. I saw one of the guys was posted something on the group. I followed his page. I looked at something he was posting. Next thing you know, I was on his YouTube channel. I was like, wow, this guy's got some really cool videos. And then I asked him, I said, well, who made your video? And he said, oh, well, so-and-so. And I said, oh, okay, cool. So I contacted the guy out of the blue, just, hey, I'm in Brian's group and wanted to ask about the video. And I was actually in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina with my wife and just taking a week off. And so there I was, chatting with him while I was on vacation and setting up some videos for some clients in the future that he's going to work on for me as a test and see if we can do something. And, his stuff's a little more high-end, but I've got some higher-end clients that'll, pay a little bit more. But you don't always have to go on the high end. There's other services that you can do, entry level stuff that will do the job as well. So definitely, yeah, having those Facebook groups, Val, like that where people are, helping people out, asking questions. It's incredible the comments and the posts and the support that Brian and Sid's groups have. I mean, they're really active.
Definitely. Well, I guess we need to wind this up a little bit here. We're getting close to our time schedule here, so
Okay.
I want to thank you so much for getting on the phone with me and sharing your business insights with everybody. It was really, really a great call, and I know I learned some stuff, so hopefully everybody got a lot of value out of this.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate you inviting me to do this. Thank you very much.
Sure thing, and keep going strong. Sounds like you've got a really great business going.
Well, thank you very much. I'll talk to you soon.
I'll talk to you soon, Frank.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.